It was the night the soccer world had been waiting weeks to see, and it delivered in the most dramatic, chaotic, and cinematic way imaginable. Nothing in the recent history of the World Cup could compare to the madness that unfolded on the pitch. The second semifinal, the 2026 clash between Argentina and England, was the ultimate battle of titans. It was exactly what FIFA's executives had dreamed of since day one, bringing together two of the biggest national teams on earth. Two soccer giants fueled by a bitter, historic rivalry. The ghost of the Hand of God in 1986. Memories of war, and memories of all those epic finals, semifinals, and quarterfinals these two heavyweights have fought in throughout history. And on top of all that baggage, there was something else. Lionel Messi leading Argentina in what could be his final World Cup, chasing a historic third trophy that no single player in the history of the sport has ever lifted before. And Jude Bellingham on the English side. The young star the British press hailed as the savior of English attacking football, carrying the hopes of a nation that literally invented the sport. What actually went down on that pitch was absolute high-stakes drama. It was a volatile, breathtaking battle unlike any other semifinal in history. And then, Argentina pulled off the comeback. Enzo Fernandez conjured up one of the tournament's most breathtaking goals. Messi threaded a pinpoint pass that literally no other player on the planet could have pulled off. Lautaro Martinez ruthlessly finished it in the final minute, and just like that, the dream final became reality. Spain versus Argentina. Lamine Yamal versus Messi. The crown jewel of Barcelona taking on the greatest player of all time. But what happened in the English locker room after the final whistle blew is something you simply cannot ignore if you want the full story. Bellingham, Rashford, and Stones, three England heavyweights, completely lost their minds. They actually tried to physically assault Thomas Tuchel. Security had to tear them apart before the English Football Association kicked them out of camp. It was the most severe disciplinary action a federation has ever taken against its own squad, especially against its own star players in the critical hours right after a World Cup semifinal. Stay tuned until the very end, because this is the absolute deepest breakdown of the most chaotic, historic night this tournament has ever produced on any of its previous nights. By the end, everything will make total sense. Here are the facts. And the facts are so wild and carry such heavy consequences, we need to break them down one by one with the seriousness they deserve. First, the match. From the opening whistle, Argentina versus England was the exact kind of high-stakes drama that only happens when both teams have far too much on the line to play it safe or rely on cold, calculated tactics. Argentina went into the match knowing that on the other side was a team that had benefited from the most bizarre, controversial refereeing decision of the entire tournament in the quarterfinals. The crazy ball that bounced off a TV camera and was somehow allowed, sending Norway packing right before the semifinal. England kept completely quiet about those scandals, desperate to avoid any payback from the refs. Tuchel set up his squad with the most defensive lineup he had used all tournament. They set up strictly to absorb Argentina's relentless pressure. The plan was to use lightning-fast counterattacks to exploit the gaps Argentina would naturally leave behind while pushing forward. In that atmosphere of extreme tension and intense tactical chess, Anthony Gordon struck first, scoring an English goal exactly the way Tuchel's tactical blueprint had drawn it up. A rapid counter, open space on the wing, and Gordon getting his shot off before the Argentine defense could even think about closing him down. 1-0 for England, and the English fans in the stands erupted, celebrating with the wild energy of people who see a plan working exactly as designed. Argentina took several minutes to regain their composure. Gordon's goal hit Scaloni's squad like a sudden tactical slap to the face. They didn't expect to fall behind so early, playing right into the exact scenario Tuchel's defensive scheme was built for. But Argentina has Lionel Messi, and Argentina has Enzo Fernandez. And those two are exactly the kind of players who shine brightest in the toughest moments. Even when the opponent's game plan is working and the scoreboard shows the match is slipping away, they can pull off the kind of moment that no defense on earth can predict or stop. And honestly, this is just the beginning of the story. But before we get into the match itself, you have to understand how Argentina even reached this semifinal. They arrived as the most heavily criticized team in the tournament, right alongside England. A team plagued by weeks of dark rumors linking them to the World Cup's most controversial referee decisions. Spain and France even put out a joint statement saying they didn't even recognize Argentina's right to be here. Then came Gianni Infantino's sudden ouster and that red warning sent to the referees. It stripped them of the systemic protection that had quietly operated in their favor week after week. Argentina entered this semi-final completely stripped of Infantino's protective umbrella. Referees knew a single suspicious mistake would cost them their entire careers. Meanwhile, the whole football world watched every single whistle under a massive, unforgiving microscope. Yet, under all that pressure, Argentina won with pure football. We saw Enzo's absolute stunner from a Messi assist, and then Lautaro's clinical finish. They didn't need any referee favors. And with the interim committee's strict warning still active, none were coming anyway. That says a lot about this squad, and they deserve credit. Because just as things seemed to go exactly how Thomas Tuchel planned, everything shattered. England was clinging to their 1-0 lead, completely parking the bus deep inside their own penalty box. Right after Anthony Gordon's opening goal, that English defensive wall looked absolutely unbreakable. Then Enzo Fernandez conjured a moment of pure magic. He changed the game more suddenly and spectacularly than any other player in the tournament had done. When the ball found his feet, any cold tactical analysis would tell you the position wasn't dangerous at all. Way outside the box, English defenders stood thick between him and the goal. The clock was ticking away, and the scoreboard was working directly against Argentina. Enzo didn't hesitate. He didn't look for a safe pass. He didn't even try to carry the ball into a better spot. Enzo unleashed a strike with the raw power and absolute certainty of a player who knows exactly what his team needs in that split second. Forget tactical logic or safer options. He let it fly, and the ball screamed directly toward the top corner, right into the top right corner of the English net. The goalkeeper tracked the ball off Enzo's boot, but he was completely helpless to stop it. When a shot flies into the top shelf with that kind of velocity and pinpoint precision, no keeper on earth is saving it. The sea of Argentine fans in the stands exploded with the pure, unbridled joy of people who knew they had just witnessed a savior of a goal right when hope was fading. On the other side, total silence. It was the quiet shock of realizing your perfect plan just took a devastating hit, one you might not recover from. Suddenly, it was tied at 1-1 with everything left to play for. There was this undeniable feeling that we had just witnessed a moment that changes the course of a tournament. It completely rewrote the mental state of both squads heading into those final, brutal minutes. But do you want to know the most unbelievable part of this whole night? What happened next? Before we get to Lautaro's winner, we have to talk about the chaotic stretch between Enzo's equalizer and that final 2-1 goal. Those agonizing minutes with the score locked at 1-1 when both squads knew the next goal would decide who punched their ticket to the final. It was easily the most suffocating high-stakes stretch of the entire match. England tried to push back. Tuchel shuffled his bench, desperately trying to revive a squad that Enzo's blast had completely rattled. The English attackers who had been suffocated by Tuchel's defensive tactics all tournament long, Jude Bellingham especially, started hunting with sheer desperation for the pockets of space they were normally denied. But Argentina held firm, Scaloni adjusted, and Messi began finding those pockets between the lines with the surgical precision of a true legend. For over 20 years in the biggest games, He's proven that this pressure doesn't break him, it actually elevates his play. The agonizing tension at 1-1 was the heaviest weight of the entire tournament, and right in that critical moment, because if Enzo's stunning equalizer was the most spectacular moment of the night, then this next play was the most decisive of all. A sequence destined for the history books with the sheer intensity only iconic matches can deliver. That moment arrived in the final seconds. The score was still tied, and both teams fought for every single ball with a spot in the final or total elimination on the line. Messi received the ball in a pocket of space, what soccer minds call between the lines. Most players on Earth would have looked for the safest option here. A sideways pass. Keeping possession, searching for space, avoiding any risk of a turnover in such a dangerous area. But Messi is not like most players. Messi is Messi. Over 20 years of elite soccer have proven that his vision is the defining trademark of his legendary game. It is something no data analysis can ever capture because it goes far beyond what numbers can measure. He saw the run. He saw Lautaro Martinez make a precise move. The Argentine striker cut inside, slicing right into the exact pocket of space the English defense had left open. Open for just the second and a half, Messi needed to spot the run and thread a perfect pass through. The pass was surgical. It was the kind of ball defenders watch slide past, unable to react because by then it is already too late. Keepers could only watch the striker bear down on them. He is completely unmarked with the exact time and space to finish with the same ice-cold composure Messi used to create the opportunity. Lautaro Martinez did not miss. That 2-1 goal put Argentina in the World Cup final, secured by the most crucial assist Messi has delivered in the modern era. Pure Argentine madness erupted. Millions of fans worldwide watched Messi close in on a historic third World Cup, a feat no player in history has ever achieved. That overwhelming joy became an iconic image that soccer fans will remember for generations to come. 2-1, Argentina wins. Spain is waiting in the final. The most anticipated match in modern soccer is now an inevitable reality. But while the Argentine fans celebrated and Spain figured out how to face them in the final, something else was brewing inside the English locker room. Something was unfolding that would soon become a massive, historic scandal. It was the most severe scandal any national federation has ever faced in the hours following a World Cup semifinal. Thomas Tuchel was the target. He was the German coach who had relied on the most defensive, conservative system ever used by a national team manager with this much individual talent in recent World Cups. Now, Tuchel was the target of their pure rage, a boiling over of frustration and anger from English players who decided on this exact night that they had had enough. Bellingham went first. The star player that English media had hyped up as the successor to everything their country had ever dreamed of in attack. Throughout the tournament, Tuchel forced him into a strict containment role, a position he had never once been asked to play during his entire career at Real Madrid or Borussia Dortmund. Just hard defensive labor. He demanded selfless sacrifice at the expense of the creative individual expression Bellingham needs to truly shine on the pitch when given the freedom he deserves. Bellingham confronted Tuchel with all his bottled-up rage. It was the raw fury of a superstar who endured weeks under a restrictive system. With England knocked out of the tournament after Argentina's 2-1 win, he simply could not take it for another single second. Rashford joined in, and Stones completed the trio. Sources inside the stadium claim they aggressively lunged at the German manager, trying to physically attack him before security guards from the English bench rushed in to tear them apart. It was easily the most shocking scene inside a national team locker room after a World Cup exit in the history of the sport. 3 world-class stars attempting to physically beat up their own coach in the locker room right in front of the entire squad. Security details had to physically step in to prevent the entire situation from spiraling into an even bigger disaster than it already was. The English Football Association moved fast. They delivered the exact kind of response you would expect from any governing body that actually cares about its public image and professional conduct. Bellingham, Rashford, and Stones were instantly kicked out of the camp. The FA released an official statement in the hours following the incident, calling their behavior a massive breach of discipline that has no place in any squad representing England, leaving 3-star players instantly banished from the team. 3 international careers ruined forever by the memory of a night when weeks of rage and frustration under a restrictive system finally exploded in the most indefensible, irreversible way possible. And an English golden generation that on this specific night wrote the absolute darkest, most shameful chapter in its recent history. While English soccer processed the biggest disciplinary scandal in its history, Spain was busy celebrating. But this Spanish celebration wasn't just about a team reaching the final of the biggest tournament on earth. It was the celebration of a project, a squad built through this tournament with the grit to survive tough moments and the pure talent to shine in the biggest ones. Marino's character in the final minute of the round of 16, Marino's character in the final minute of the quarterfinals, Olarzabal's pure talent for that goal in the semifinal against France, Porro's class in the absolute final play, and the raw genius of Lamine Yamal that elevates this team beyond mere tactical analysis, putting them in that rare space where everything clicks perfectly at the exact moment it matters most. Spain now awaits Argentina with the calm of a side that already dismantled France, fully knowing they have the raw talent, the character, and the system needed to win any game put in front of them. The final is Spain versus Argentina, Lamine Yamal against Messi. The 18-year-old wonder kid who has already proved in this tournament that the heaviest pressure never shrinks him, but actually makes him grow facing off against the legend who proved in this semifinal that when it truly matters, when the tournament is on the line and careers are being defined, he is still capable of doing what no other player on earth can. That pass to Lautaro in the final minute of a tied World Cup semifinal with the final as the ultimate prize. That is Messi, and that is exactly what Lamine Yamal faces in this 2026 World Cup final. For those of you who have followed this for years from the stands, those who show up every single week because you know we tell the stories that corporate media, with all their financial biases, are simply too terrified to touch. You have followed the entire dramatic arc of this tournament, from the very first leaked audios to Argentina's 2-1 win over England in that chaotic locker room scandal. And when we pointed out that Tuchel's system was a gamble that might work against weaker opponents, but against Argentina, with Messi and Enzo at their absolute peak, it was doomed to spark the exact frustration that blew up the locker room. You agreed our analysis was spot on. You were right. You always were, without exception. And today, with Argentina in the final and the English locker room shattered by their worst modern scandal, reality proves it, with the kind of force only the beautiful game can deliver. Let's close with 3 final points. First, Enzo Fernandez's spectacular goal and Messi's crucial assist to Lautaro are the 2 most decisive moments Argentina has produced so far. Not just because they were stunning, though. Enzo's strike was of a caliber you rarely ever see in a World Cup semifinal, but because they arrived at the exact moments when Argentina desperately needed them most, when things looked bleak, and the relentless pressure of Tuchel's defensive system was doing exactly what it was designed to do. Second, the attempted physical assault by Bellingham, Rashford, and Stones against Tuchel, resulting in their immediate expulsion by the FA, is the most deeply damaging disaster for the English national team's image to ever happen in the immediate hours following a World Cup elimination. It is not that their rage and frustration are hard to understand, especially under a rigid system that handcuffed them all tournament, but the way they let that anger explode crossed every single line of what professional conduct can ever justify. Third, this final between Spain and Argentina is the matchup the entire soccer world has dreamed of since day one. Not because of some corporate script designed in the offices of FIFA, but because of the pure magic built on the pitch week after week, putting Lamine Yamal and Messi on the same World Cup final stage. An 18-year-old wonder kid starting his climb to the very top of world soccer against the 37-year-old legend writing the absolute final chapters of the most extraordinary career the sport has ever seen, with the ultimate trophy on earth as the prize for this historic clash. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Who takes the crown in this historic final between Spain and Argentina? Can Lamine Yamal step up again as the most decisive player in the tournament's biggest match against Messi? And is this English locker room scandal the final blow for a golden generation that promised so much but delivered so little on the biggest stages? I want to hear your thoughts because we build this community together, sharing the belief that soccer deserves honest, unfiltered analysis. If you made it this far, it is because you appreciate real ground-level coverage, the place where we say what corporate media, tied down by their big budgets, would never dare to reveal. There are no teams to protect here, no legends to shield when the harsh reality of the game speaks as clearly as it did tonight. Just raw soccer, honest and unfiltered. If you think this video matters, share it right now without a second thought. Share it with every Spanish fan who just realized their team is playing the ultimate final of the tournament against Messi's Argentina, and who needs to know that the squad facing Lamine Yamal is precisely the most dangerous opponent Spain could meet in that final. Share it with that Argentine who just watched Messi at his absolute peak in the most critical moment, needing to believe the dream of a third World Cup, a feat no player in soccer history has ever achieved, could actually come true in this specific final. And share it with that England fan watching three of their most crucial players get kicked out of camp for trying to assault their own manager, struggling to process how such a talented generation could crash out of a World Cup in this devastating way. Hit like if you believe Spain will win the World Cup final against Argentina and that Lamine Yamal will be named player of the tournament. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet and turn on the notification bell because the 2026 World Cup final between Spain and Argentina is going to be even more historic than promised. In our next video, I will bring you an exclusive, honest, tactical breakdown of exactly what Spain needs to do to defeat Argentina. How will Scaloni try to shut down Lamine Yamal with the same intense focus that Deschamps tried and failed to use? Can Messi reach this final in the peak physical and mental shape required for the most important match left in his entire career? And will the scandal involving Bellingham, Rashford, and Stones carry deeper consequences for their international careers beyond just being sent home from the tournament? That's insider info you won't get anywhere else, only here, where we bring you closest to the action, unfiltered, uncompromising, and completely unafraid to say what others hide. Then came that spectacular historic strike from outside the box. Messi set up Lautaro in the final minute with the most clutch assist of the tournament. Argentina reaches the final, while England collapses internally with Bellingham, Rashford, and Stones. Expelled by the FA in the most severe disciplinary scandal in the recent history of English soccer. The most chaotic, dramatic, and historic night of the most explosive tournament the world has ever seen.